everybody. It is Steph. It is Friday, 12 p.m. Central Time, and you know what that means. It is time for the Friday 15, where we answer the industry questions you have submitted to us. And if you have questions, which I hope you do, you can go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15 or follow the link in the description and submit your questions as well as watch old episodes. So today we have a co-host on with us. We have Jennifer Dugan with Dugan's Travel. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
It is great to see you. Now, our listeners may or may not know, but you just celebrated your 25th anniversary, which is no small feat for any small business, especially in travel, considering over 25 years. Were you started then when the airline cuts were happening, or did you start right after that?
Yeah, actually, I started, commissions were gone for airlines, but we were still, in the beginning phases of actually taking on, the agents. Not so much a thing back then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think it's amazing to be 25 years because of the fact that, well, you missed the commission cuts, but you got 9/11, you got the pandemic. Travel is so cyclical, but to make it through all of those, super impressive. So huge congrats. And I did see a picture on LinkedIn where there's a lot of fun pictures when you brought in the suppliers and all the advisors to celebrate. But one of them was a big pile of donuts, and there was a sign on it that said something, and I can't remember what the sign said. What did it say?
Eat more whole foods.
Oh, yeah, Whole Foods with the HOLE, which I was like,
Yes.
that's really awesome. Love that. Well, let's see. So, a couple things before we get into today's questions, which, by the way, you all really turned out. I told Jennifer we have some doozy, very specific questions this week. So, we'll get to them in a sec. But a couple things I wanted to go over some events that are coming up for all of you listening. So on October 23rd, there is going to be a webinar on 5 secrets to running a successful travel agency in today's market. All of these links we will link to in the description. On October 30th, we have from inquiry to deposit, how to speed up proposal turnaround and increase your close rate. And then another one, October 30th, we have unlock the power of precision database segmentation for travel advisors. And then Dugan's has their seminar at sea coming up on November 2nd. This is invite only for their advisors. But if you're interested in joining their company, it can give you kind of a taste of what's out there. And that's, you're with Royal Caribbean on that one?
Actually, Carnival is November. So,
Oh, Carnival's November. Okay,
yeah.
cool. And then Dugan's U is in Hawaii, your annual conference, and that's February 24th. We will link to those all in the comments. So anyone that's interested can check those out. But let's get into the questions. Janette, you gave us a doozy here. So I can't help but think that this is because we launched the travel agency software profiles last week or the week before, because we have a couple really specific questions. So first one, Janette. I love the HAR CRM and itinerary article. We'll link to that for everyone. My head is spinning. I've looked at so many: Planet Easy, Travify, Travel Joy, UMAP, Access, Test, Turn. Which one can I either forward the email confirmations from the hotel's air and car, and that it will input all the details, not just the confirmation and dates? She wants things like prices, room type, cancellation policies. Or do they all make you enter this again to create the client itinerary once you are finished booking the reservation? Which one lets you import confirmations directly from suppliers and help create itineraries? So yes, I want a unicorn, a central repository for all of my clients' profiles and their bookings, plus the ability to create and send itineraries that are, of course, beautiful. Haha. So yeah, doozy. Now, Jennifer, what do you most of your advisors use for their CRM for
So,
itinerary builder?
so a lot of them are using Travify. It just seems to be the most. It just seems to be the one they're all gravitating towards. And I
Hmm.
think it's because you can really make it your own product. They do have things like you can do a library piece that you can drop in for all of your items. So again, not having to repeat the same information over and over again. But one thing to keep in mind is that there's really nothing that does it all for us. We're gonna have to input some items in, and we're gonna have to do some of the manual entry. And it's just really because there's not one unicorn that does it all for us, unfortunately. However, I like to look at it in the positive way, is that that means we're still needed, us as human beings, because when it gets to the point where everything can get brought in, that's where AI and technology might actually be a bad thing for us, is that if it can do it itself and doesn't need us to do that fine tuning and making sure it's correct, then we could be out of a job. So I always think of the way to make it your own. You definitely can build out different things that you can reuse over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that will really help cut your time down. And some you can send the information via email, but then again, you're probably going to have to tweak something because it might input it not the way you want it to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the best thing is just find what works for you and start building on it, and take classes if you can, right? Learn about the system and see, give it a try.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to share my screen really quick for those of you that are tuning in on YouTube. So, well, here's our events calendar with the Dugan's events when I searched for it. But let's go to the new travel agency software profile. So we have, I think it's over 15 for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have about 15 different tech software companies right now that focus on agencies, and over, I think it's like 85 or 90 reviews right now. So there's a lot of data in here. And Janette, I don't know the specifics on all of these companies. We will link to our article on the CRMs and itineraries because that gives a nice comparison. Now we have these profiles, which when you mentioned a lot of your advisors are on Travify, so we'll pull up theirs. You'll be able to look in here. It doesn't have information on if you can forward emails, but what you can do, and I would recommend, just because there are so many companies right now, Janette, that are doing things, and a lot of them are deploying new updates weekly, if not multiple times a week. So there's so many new features coming out all the time. So what I would recommend you do, go to their profile, check it out, but then there's the question and answer tab, and you can quickly answer or ask your question in here, and they'll get back to you right away. It's a great way. And then other advisors can learn from it as well, which is great. And then within the profile, you can check out their demo, see more about their team, see which host agencies or consortia work with them, see which suppliers they integrate with, see the pricing. There's a ton of information in here. And then on certain profiles, you can also sign up for their newsletter, which is really great if you want to keep up to date with any training and education opportunities that are out there. So let me remove this screen really quickly. So Janette, I don't have great answers for you, and it really is going to depend. But I think Jennifer's spot on with saying you're always going to have to tweak things. It's never going to be forwarded from the supplier, because there should be like you looking it over and personalizing things, because that's the value of a travel advisor. So next question from Dina. Do you have a place that you can recommend to track expenses? I'm using an Excel spreadsheet, and honestly, I am not a fan of it. Dina, I have been working in spreadsheets all this week, trying to do some projections, and whoo, I am with you. I am not a fan of Excel. So, Jennifer, what do you use to keep track of expenses? What do your advisors use?
So we use QuickBooks, but I've tried different things over the years. I think I've used Xero, Fresh Books, some other different items to try, and it really does depend on where you're at in the business.
Mhm.
One thing to keep in mind is that if you're hoping to grow, you want to be in something that will work with a bookkeeper or an accountant, because they're really I mean, you want to know how to sell travel. You don't want to have to worry about the books. So if you get to the point where you can afford to have somebody like a bookkeeper, or, in my case, I use a CPA, you want to set yourself up so that works a lot easier. And in companies like QuickBooks, you can even pay to have someone set up your books and get yourself going, and then you can start doing it on your own if you want. But really, if you're at that point where Excel doesn't work for you anymore, you really should be looking at, where do I want to be and where should I be to get the help I need. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would recommend. Most companies or most accountants are very versed on QuickBooks. QuickBooks
Yeah.
is fairly easy to use, especially once you get set up. So, and it will do some automation for you, because if something comes in that it knows is an office expense, it will categorize it that way. You can start pulling reports so you know what you're spending your money on and what you're earning on. So that's what I would suggest is, a QuickBooks product,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. There's others out there, but if you are wanting to maybe get help later on, most accountants are using QuickBooks.
Are you on QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks
Yes,
Desktop? Okay, yeah,
I'm
I would
online.
recommend online too. We were
Yes.
on desktop and it's not as user friendly, even though it's
Yeah.
more affordable. And the change to QuickBooks Online also opens it up so that you can have people work virtually. Because if you have desktop, they have to come to your place.
Yes.
So that's one thing. We will link to QuickBooks. Zero is XERO. We'll link to it as well as an option, in FreshBooks. Those are kind of the three big ones, I would say. Another way, Dina, depending on how many expenses you're having, I think that the fact that you're kind of not really liking Excel means you're having enough expenses that this formal bookkeeping software makes sense. But another thing you could try, I use this for our house expenses, is Expensify, and I'll just have different expense reports that I'll assign an expense to, and I can upload a picture, put it in different categories, and then run reports at the end of the year on how much I spent on, supplies versus
Yeah.
repairs and all sorts of other stuff. So that's another option for you, Dina, as well. But I'm also going to link to, because we are talking about expenses, is our article on HAR about which travel expenses you can or can't write off, so that you're aware of it, that personal vacation or cruise you're going on is not going to be tax deductible. And if you have a work business trip that you're also doing personal stuff with, maybe tied on an extra 2 days at the end, how do you divvy that up? So that's a great thing to look at. But Dina, the other thing I want to call out that Jennifer mentioned is setting yourself up for success. Because before we came on, Jennifer and I were talking about how both of us, we ended up on QuickBooks, but we had a bookkeeper. Like, I was saying that when I started, I didn't take any formal training on QuickBooks, and I didn't really know a lot about bookkeeping. And they set you up with main categories, and so I just used those. But what would be really have been helpful and really set me up for success is if I would have hired on a bookkeeper to
Yeah.
set up my books, understand my business, and then walk me through what I'm doing and why, because I didn't even understand things like undeposited funds and all these things that your world will be opened up to when you go into a
Yes.
bookkeeping program. And it's really nice to have formal training on that. So let's see. Last question is from Anonymous. Oh, very specific one here. Hi there. I have a client wanting to go on a fall foliage tour back east this year. I already quoted her a land tour, but now she's asking about a train tour. Walking a lot would be a problem for my client. So how should I balance all of these requests and find the right suppliers? Thank you for all your feedback. This is really specific, but I think, well, Jennifer, tell me what you're thinking, but I think this can extrapolate to just any trip in general. How do you find the best supplier for specific requests?
Well, first, starting with the client request is, sometimes as agents, we have to really dig down in what a client is actually asking for and what is possible, or what is doable for them and their situation. So expanding on that, why does she want this train travel, and seeing if there is options to add it in either into the land package. Some of the suppliers like Globus offers some train travel also, but it really depends on what you can find with your supplier to accommodate what your client needs, and really getting to know what your client needs. And it could be, for example, many suppliers, it depends on what your price point is on what you get. So I like to use Disney as an example. For Disney World, if you go to Disney World and you stay at their cheaper resorts, you're going to be maybe walking a little bit further to the bus stop, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to if you're staying at one of the deluxe resorts, you're going to have a shorter distance. So same thing with maybe this land package is train travel. What will that entail for this client? Will it be a lot of walking, like you said, and maybe that's not doable? But maybe there is a tour operator that does something like picks her up and drops her off right at the train. So it's really trying to figure out what supplier will meet your client's needs, but also getting a feel for what are those needs, because we shouldn't be order takers in any way, shape, or form. We should be getting to know, why does this client want this? Can we accommodate it any other way? What supplier will accommodate what they need? And it should be for all of our trips, right? Even when someone comes in and says, I want to cruise on this particular cruise line, I want this category. Well, talking to them might find out that really what they want is a different cruise line, and maybe they want a different cabin, and maybe they even want a different destination once you start talking to them, because clients sometimes think they know what they want, and then sometimes we have to be the ones to figure out what they really really want and how they'll be happy, because you don't want to send somebody, like you don't want to send this person on a train trip that doesn't work for her, because then she's going to come back and she's not going to be happy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a bad situation for you. So get to know the client and then start reaching out to suppliers, and once you can tell a supplier, this is my client and this is what they need, that conversation helps to figure
Mm-hmm.
out the best thing, right? They want to know too, especially a lot of these suppliers that will build you an itinerary. They need to know your client. So if you know your client, then that helps.
Yeah, the qualifying of the client
Yeah.
is the number one thing for
Yes.
success. We have an article on it that I'll link to for everyone if that's an area you're kind of struggling with on how to ask the right questions. The other thing when I'm reading this question anonymous is what's really sticking out to me is that it sounds like the client has perhaps has some disabilities and
Yeah.
because of the walking issue, and making sure you really really understand what the needs are. Having myself a disability and with the disease that I have, it makes it difficult to walk sometimes, and I need my walker or a wheelchair. And so thinking about that, it's really important for the travel advisor to understand the questions to be asking
Yes.
somebody that has mobility challenges or sensory challenges, all these special needs a traveler might have. And there are some really amazing spots, which are our education sessions during Host Week, that
Mhm.
I'm going to link to. Every year, we do a session on working with travelers with disabilities of all different types. And so, and it can be everything from someone that's overweight that is going to need a seatbelt extender, may not be able to go on some of the rides in Disney's, things like that. So I'm going to link to those because they're amazing for any travel advisor, just to have these questions and thoughts in your head
Yes.
on what to be aware of, because especially as baby boomers are aging, it's a huge population, has tons of money, they're all retiring,
Yes.
and they're going to need to have trips with special accommodations, or making sure that you're fitting them to somewhere that it's not cobblestone streets if they have to walk with a
Exactly.
walker.
Yeah.
So we'll link to those, but that's a great question and sounds really beautiful. A fall
Yes.
Foliage tour in a train sounds really gorgeous.
Yes.
Let's see. And by the way, there's also in Minnesota, we have beautiful fall foliage, and there are some train tours here. I know we're not a hot spot, but just
Yes.
throwing that out there, you're not going to find a tour opera. I don't think that carries it, but just something to consider. So
Yep.
let's see. Jennifer, we are going to link to your profile that has reviews from your advisors, all sorts of information. It also shows your upcoming events that you have going on, whether it's for any advisor or for advisors specific to Dugan's that people can check out. Is there anything else that you want to share with people, places they can contact you or things you want them to look at?
So we've been doing a lot of stuff because of our 25th anniversary. So be sure to check out our Facebook page. We've got lots of pictures. We had a great event, so lots of things out there. But just we've been around for a while. So luckily, when you Google us, you'll find lots of information about us, and just if you're somebody who's new to the industry or you're looking for the right home, please keep us in mind. There's lots of great host agencies out there, luckily for our industry. So, and we're definitely needing agents. So if you're somebody who's new, who's tuning in, our industry is very happy to have you. So,
Yeah.
and like I said about the qualifying, it's getting to know your client, it's getting to know suppliers, and we can do all that by your education. And we're big into education at Dugan's Travels. So hopefully everyone
Yeah.
who has it's success, right? That's what we want for everyone. So we hope that you know next year is even better than this year. So
Oh, it definitely will be.
yeah.
I have good, strong feelings about
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
We're going to link to the Facebook page. I'm also going to link to the LinkedIn post I saw with the Holy Donuts
Yes.
for people that are interested. And coming up for the next couple of weeks, those of you Friday 15 diehards there, we have October 25th. So next week already, we have Travel Planners International. And you know what? That's going to be right before Halloween. I'm going to see if Dave is going to dress up for that.
Yeah.
Maybe
I'm
for it.
glad I didn't get that one.
I know. This just popped into my head. So maybe tune in for that one. I may be dressed really weird. November 1st, we have Travel Edge. And if you are liking the Friday 15s, you can sign up for email reminders as well as text message reminders that will send it to you ahead of time with a link to watch it and the topics. And you can do that by going to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. Thank you all for joining us.
Yes.
Jennifer, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everyone. And we will see you next Friday. Thanks, everyone.